She was once called Seattle's most interesting museum curator, but not long ago she left her illustrious post at the Frye Art Museum to head up a nonprofit in filmmaking for girls and young women. Today, Robin Held is using the creative platform of Reel Grrls to transform her constituents' lives through media making. Why is it so important to connect with these young women at such an early stage? And how can Robin ensure Reel Grrls' long-term viability as technology continues to disrupt the most sacrosanct of media-making institutions? I'm Hanson Hossein. Welcome to Four Peaks. Well, Robin Held, welcome to Four Peaks. Thanks for joining us.
It's really nice to be here.
So, I got to know, I mean, you had this amazing career in the world of museums, and most recently you made this transition to this really interesting nonprofit, but seems to be worlds apart. What was the motivation there?
You know, I was a museum curator. I've been a curator for about 20 years, and much of that has been museum work. And in that time, most of my work has been with artists working in fields of new media, whatever that means. And most often that's been with women artists and helping them bring new ideas into the world. And I've worked with women at the beginnings of their careers, very seasoned artists, women for whom I was working on museum retrospectives. And many times what I helped them with was, these are artists making something new in the world. Our vocabulary hasn't even caught up with what they make. And the avenues we have for presenting, for explaining, for thinking together with an artist are narrow. And I found that women artists had particular perspectives, struggles, interesting issues. So in part because of that work with women and new media, with artists and new media, and it's funny because for all the openness we think the art world has, and it's really a place for new ideas to form, even though we say airline attendants, we say pilots, we say actors.
We've degendered things along the way.
Meanwhile, in the art world, we still say artist and woman artist.
Right. So in many ways, what you're saying then is that you actually wanted to find a way to get to these young women earlier and be able to have some kind of influence on how they create that art.
So when I learned that Reel Grrls was looking for an executive director, something felt really, really right about that. It was a way for me to work with young women artists at that moment where girls' shoulders are going from this to this, when it's a point when you're learning to make and someone can tell you no or someone can tell you yes and it can matter. It felt really right at this time to work with young women and who are thinking about their making as art for the first time and thinking that what they are making might be special.
So what happens at that stage that you get them at? So we're talking about, I think, 9 years old to about 19. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty wide gamut. Mm-hmm. But what are you trying to do at that phase that is going to be able to influence them in the years to come?
Well, when Reel Grrls was formed, it's 12 years old now, it was really about film making. And it was about beginning to change an industry and putting more women behind the camera.
So we're pulling up some video, by the way, just some examples of some of the things that are being done at Reel Grrls while we're talking. But
the media making world that girls are facing now and the possible careers in that media making world are very, very different than they were when Reel Grrls was founded. The tools changed, the formats change, but what's true is that making doesn't change. And the confidence to make and the confidence in yourself to see something new and say, oh yeah, I can figure that out. I can make, I can express myself in these new mediums. And a confidence that what you have to say matters. So it's very youth-oriented in that way.
And is there a particular visual language, or does you just really try to nurture the artist within for each individual and have them follow through on that?
Well, on one hand, 9 is different than 9.5 is different than 10 is different than 10.5. The core of Reel Grrls programming is teens, and that's where it started, 13 to 19. But we find that with the bombarding of all girls with certain ways of imaging, Family films, for example, haven't really changed in the last 20 years in terms of the representation of girls. Girls as active, girls as thinkers, girls as makers, women as working. So in teaching girls to make, we're also helping them see the world around them and manage the kinds of images that come at them, that become part of their skin before they even know what's coming at them about who you are and aren't who you aren't.
So there's a media literacy, there's a critical thinking, there's a sense of self at the same time, because a lot of people looking from the outside in would say, well, yeah, you guys started 10 or 11 years ago. It was really important when the barriers to entry are really high to get access to that technology, but girls, boys, everybody now has access to all this because we have it in our smartphones. So why do we need to have this separate organization to teach them this literacy?
Boys and girls learn differently. Boys and girls together learn differently. I would love to be in a place someday with Reel Grrls where if you decide that it's the right place for you to learn and you walk through those doors willing to learn in an environment that really is about gender equality and respect for your peers in making, I would love that. But right now there is still the need for separate learning environments for girls. I'm finding even in some cases we have a lot of transgendered youth in our group, and I am sorry to say that some of the ways that people born female who are deciding they are better in the world as boys, one of the ways they become boyed is to bully. Mm-hmm. So there's still a place, we're still finding our way, but there's still really a place for girls to learn separately from boys at a certain stage.
Well, that's interesting. And for me as a father of a young girl who's 4, and I'm thinking about this, and I'm worried, my wife and I worry about the saturation of media and the kind of messages she's receiving. And so I'm thinking maybe it would be worth actually teaching her how to make and create and do, because that actually gives her the strength and the literacy along the way. Do you have any advice for a parent as they're considering media and their young daughter?
I'm not a parent, so what I'm going to say is only going to be from watching friends and knowing how they're doing the work they do, and from watching the girls in the classes. I think it's really, another friend would probably call it I don't know how a parent manages this, but it's almost that adultism, right? Mm-hmm. There's the point where you do know best, and where you do have to say, this is the way it's going to be, because I'm actually helping you find your way and be better. But there's also that room for someone for her own thoughts, her own expression, and of the many ways she could do things, there might be a way that she does things that you wouldn't have considered, and it's not wrong. Well,
that's actually really helpful, actually. I think I'll actually try to apply that. So when we return with Robin Held, we'll explore some of the challenges she's taking on at Reel Grrls. We're back with Robin Held from Reel Grrls. Robin, I mean, Reel Grrls is such an amazing organization. You're teaching so many things to these women and these girls as they become full-fledged adults, leadership and a sense of self. At the same time, even as they're exploring their art, you also almost have a business here, don't you? Mm-hmm. You guys you have clients.
We do have clients. There's a trajectory to Reel Grrls that is not clear yet, I think, on its website. The robustness of it was even a surprise to me coming in. And right now it often ends, if I had a cocktail napkin here, I would be drawing it, because that's actually the shape it's clearest in right now. But we have programs, it's almost like dance classes, where many, many people come in for a beginning class, and then some stay, some get hooked. And we have some girls who stay 3 and 4 more years. They come in at 9 for an introductory stop action animation class, and then they stay and they learn more and more advanced skills. Those girls, while at 9 and 10 there may be fewer activities for them, by 13, 14, 15 they are pulled in many, many directions, from soccer to debate to after school jobs. At that point we are finding structure and stipends to actually have them choose coming to Reel Grrls in the summer rather than summer employment. This leads the more advanced girls to actually becoming part of an apprenticeship program. in the apprenticeship program, they start to move from telling their own stories to beginning to tell a client's story.
So this is career building. This is actually
Career
working
building.
for an external organization. And that must be challenging because they started basically by fulfilling passions, very internal creative urges, and suddenly they have to work for an external organization where they may not necessarily share that same level of passion.
So now the professional development comes in, the skills about working with a team, with being on time, with building a schedule together, negotiating. All those things are the kinds of skills that are wrapped up with the hard technology skills as well.
That's an incredible balance that you have to have both with your constituents but also with your clients, because they're probably not seeing you as a nonprofit. They're seeing you as like, you're providing a service to us. We have a certain expectation of what we're going to get. How do you manage all this?
Well, there's the squishy part, and then there's the more solid part. There's a lot of client education that goes on too, because clients come in wanting what they, The Hobbit, right?
Really, like 3D, 48 frames per second, IMAX.
Or they've been very, very disappointed because my brother made me a promotional video on his iPhone and for a kiss and a hug, right? And it was this quality and I'm unhappy, I want The Hobbit, right? Somewhere in between are the promotional videos that Reel Grrls can offer that are very professionally done, 3 to 5 to 7 minutes, but it takes a while to help a client understand how his or her message can be told and how to tell it in this format. And so some of it's really basic. What do you want to use it for? Who's your audience for this? Some really, really basic stuff that for them, in many cases, clients have not figured out before they walk in the door.
So this is an ongoing challenge for you, that you actually have to figure out how to have that conversation with the clients, even as you're bringing your girls and your women along to actually service that particular need for the client.
The real Reel Grrls part that infuses this, though, is also, there is that base. Reel Grrls will come and shoot your client video. At the same time, it will train you to shoot your own.
That's good.
So that the kind of knowledge goes with you. And sometimes those teachers, the ones with the most experience, are those 15 and 16-year-olds who are helping you as an adult client figure out how to best tell your story.
And they become the experts within your organization as well. So that's great. After the break, we'll actually help extend Robin Hell's reach by taking on this challenge and figuring out some answers along the way. Well, Robin Held, Executive Director of Reel Grrls, let's see if we can apply a little Four Peaks therapy to your challenge. This is very much the same kind of approach we take in the graduate program that I run, that we actually face these challenges on a regular basis with professionals all the time. So what you're looking at is not unusual, but it's very specific to your situation. And it strikes me you've got two challenges. First of all is how to work with a client and educate them about how to deal with video, which is still very new to them, and at the same time satisfy and teach these students, these female students, these women, these girls, how to play in this new entrepreneurial client space. And so I would suggest, first of all, in terms of setting expectations, is that actually working on setting up a creative brief from the outset. Once you actually initialize that relationship with the client, you bring in the student and the client into the same room and really solidify what the client's looking for, put it on paper, what are your objectives, what's going to be considered a good return on investment, what kind of narrative you're going to have. And for the student, they recognize that yes, it's not necessarily fulfilling their artistic passions, particularly with this client, but they get to still play the teacher role, right? And so if they can sort of make that transition, how do you think that might work for what you're looking at? This idea of actually setting those expectations for both parties right off the bat, actually in writing through a brief.
I think that is a really effective way to proceed. It's not usually one-on-one like that. And if we have time, I'd like to use an example of something.
Yeah.
That, Reel Grrls shoots client videos that are pretty straight. Here's the client, here's the nonprofit. Let's use one we did most recently for Yoga Behind Bars, for example. And Reel Grrls works with them to share their message. We also have, in one case, a family foundation that funds Reel Grrls, and then we shoot videos for the nonprofits in their portfolio. In that situation, which is very special for Reel Grrls, that the person who runs that family foundation comes in and shares the portfolio with the girls, they actually choose the clients.
Oh, wow.
So they understand what the Family Foundation does. They understand what philanthropy is. They together, the crews that are going to actually work on those videos, choose the clients and learn the stories of those clients. But what you're describing would be an additional precision to that work.
And in that precision, and we actually do this, I do this even in the work that I accomplish, is that you actually look at it from a storytelling point of view. The first and foremost thing you do is establish what we call the action idea. What is that core narrative mission statement that would both satisfy the client, but also respond to sort of the artistic needs of the person who's going to make the film in a way that it actually makes sense for everybody. And once you figure out that action idea, then you can start thinking about the platforms you're going to use to sort of distribute that content and how the audiences are going to continue to sustain and connect. So that's something we look at, but it has to be set out in that conversation so everybody's on the same platform, essentially. But I like the fact that the students actually get to choose along the way, because it means there is a certain amount of responsibility and accountability that comes along with it.
But what you just described is something that feels like a really great hinge from the way the girls have now been conditioned to tell their own stories, to move in with their storytelling skills to working directly with clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And this part is actually applies to everybody, but there's a certain amount of growing up and professionalism that also has to occur here. That you can always have these vanity projects, and art really matters, and so does the create, but it's actually really hard to make a living off that unless you're some kind of superstar. And this kind of work is actually what pays the bill. So recognize that that's probably going to be your way of life if you continue in this direction. So, grow up, do it, find your joy in it, and recognize that the money you bring in, if there's some extra, it can actually fund those things that really matter to you.
This is some of the feminist work Reel Grrls does too, though, because it's the kind of work that working directly with clients, making sure that that you're heard, and that we have decided on a scope of work and we move forward on that scope of work, rather than what artists often learn, I think, is, oh yeah, whatever you want, I'll do more. Sometimes it's the thing women do. Do more, I'll do more. Okay, I'm getting paid less, it's taking more time. There are some real skills being, lessons being exchanged, skills being learned as the girls learn to negotiate. So what you're describing would actually be some really enhanced tools for that negotiation work.
Negotiation work, setting boundaries and expectations, so there's no surprises, and it actually brings down the level of stress in the relationship as well. But I love the fact that it actually sort of plays into this feminist perspective and how we actually establish those relationships. I never thought about it that way, so I learned something as well. So I really appreciate you working through in this exercise with me. And when we come right back with Robin Held from Reel Grrls, she's actually going to show me a thing or two, but we're going to move beyond media and actually get into the kitchen a little bit. So we'll be right back with Robin Held.
Four Peaks is made possible by generous support from Weber Shandwick.
So Robin Held has been building and rebuilding Reel Grrls, and now we're here at the Reel Grrls studio, where Robin is going to teach me how to build and rebuild with a hot pot. Robin.
All right.
So Robin, we are here. You're going to teach me something, and it's obviously not how to make a film.
No. I'm going to show you how to make a hot pot.
Oh, excellent.
And in this case, it's a Japanese hot pot, and it's really, really simple, really easy to make, really easy to repeat, and the primary instruction is just don't stir.
I like that. That's really interesting. So you're not supposed to play with the elements once they're together, which is the antithesis to filmmaking. Maybe. So what I'm going to do is just add some things, and then we'll turn it on. And I'll add the heavier things and the things that need to cook longer. Right now?
Okay, so this is a piece of seaweed. It's called kombu, and I don't know, this is the Japanese word, but umami. I guess we all talk about taste, right? And mouth feel. And this is one of the smell. It's a dried kelp.
Oh, wow.
And it just adds that to the broth.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is tofu.
This is just a soft tofu. And I'll just put that in the middle. This is dashi.
Okay. The expert pour. Is that okay?
All right.
Okay.
And then we're going to do another one of those, and we're going to add some. Pour it in anywhere.
Okay. It is structured. You're structuring it even before you put it in, though.
Yeah, you'll see. Things go in their own place. They don't just pile. Right. but there's no center.
What's interesting about that is I think about filmmaking and storytelling from an American point of view, at least from a Hollywood point of view, and you definitely have a center, right? You have your beginning, middle, and end. Here it seems to be more sort of holistic, and you're experiencing the story from many different directions.
And you have many points of view all at once, too. There is not, it's almost like there's not a single protagonist.
Oh.
So then I'm adding a half cup of mirin, which is just cooking wine. It's a sweetened sake. Okay, so this is a half cup of soy sauce and a half cup of mirin.
Oh, it smells incredible.
So we're going to do two things, and it'll be really, really quick. It'll be done in no time. I'm just going to put the meat in.
Yeah, that should cook in like 2 minutes, right?
And then we're going to pile, and you can help me pile. Just then pile the greens just right on top.
Just do that now?
Okay. And then we'll press them down. As soon as they wilt a little bit, it's done.
Okay.
Just make sure that everything gets covered. And then we'll serve it. Smell.
It smells amazing and fresh. Do you think it's mostly because for taste and for the way you like to cook, or is there a health component for it as well?
I guess the health comes second, I think. I just really love these flavors. And I love the fact that there are 6 or 7 ingredients here, and you can combine them in any different way, and you get very, very different flavors. It's the same elements, but they're always different. It surprises
never
me.
the same story twice, is it?
I like how many textures are in this, too.
Well, Robin, thank you. It's hard not to look at the construction of this dish, a one-pot dish, and think about filmmaking, all the elements that go into it, but then there's a certain amount of magic that takes place.
Magic.
And it's different each time around.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing that.
Yes, thank you.
And back to the studio. Throwback to myself here at the studio. Robin, I think it's quite amazing that we actually were able to do that in the Media Lab. We were cooking in a place where films actually normally get made. So thank you, Robin Held. We invite you all to extend your reach by connecting with us at 4peaks.org. I'm Hanson Hossein. Production of 4 Peaks would not be possible without the generous support of our sponsors.